morning I told my husband what this talk was going to be about, and he sent me a screenshot of a LinkedIn post which I believe is going viral, and I'm going to read that out. This is from a lady named Joanna McJewski, and she says, "You know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and reading. Not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can continue to do laundry and dishes." So back in 2014, I was at Intel, really pumped up. I actually told someone this morning, I thought I was going to be a lifer at Intel, because that was the era when technology was solving human problems. We were working on telemedicine, opening up the opportunity for someone in deep interior India to access cutting-edge medical technology in the cities, access to good tertiary healthcare enabled by technology. And there was a certain purpose to doing that work. Almost famous last words, because everything that followed, including IoT for driverless cars and such, started heading in the direction of man versus machine. Right? And it basically came to this denouement. I don't know how many of you were around when Alvin Toffler wrote Future Shock, just show of hands. No one's heard of the book, so I guess it's a different generation of people here. But when I was in college, that was the buzz, to start to see the world unfold exactly as someone had predicted 20, 30 years ago. And then Professor Nick Bostrom, right at the heart of this whole AI evolution, said AI is bad. Right? He said it's a threat to humanity and only bad news going forward. It kind of has turned now because of a few things. Today he acknowledges its immense potential to solve problems of humanity, take away this man versus machine debate, and say, with AI, what can we do that we otherwise might not have done? I share with you today 4 such success stories, well, inspirational stories, hope they become success stories, that I've had this immense fortune of watching from the sidelines when we started our incubator for nonprofit tech startups back in 2017. Each one of the entrepreneurs here has said, fine, there is the risk of technology taking away jobs, etc. But how can I make sure that in the same generation that technology is solving first world problems, how does it serve the needs of India's poorest, the bottom 20%, and make life better on this planet? So very quick walkthrough of all 4 stories, and then we'll open it up for questions. Solinas Integrity was founded by a group of young people, one of whom was in his final year at IIT Madras, and as part of our incubator, doing his second startup, which is called Involve Education, which was a non-profit. And in that same time, he'd started up Solinas as a for-profit because the business model enabled him to make revenues. The social problem Solinas is solving is ending manual scavenging. Manual scavenging has continued right down to 2024 and may continue for a few more years because we have not had an alternative. Because there has been no alternative, communities have been kept in poverty, their children not allowed to go to schools or exit the profession because, like I said, no alternative. So Solinas is making AI go into spaces where human beings should not. This is a robotics-based solution that is helping to solve breakages and leakages in the wastewater systems, also in the clean water systems, preventing contamination of water, now in 8 to 10 cities across the country, with the government coming in as the buyer. They work with municipalities, and their robotic solutions is helping with leak detection. And the collection of data is able to anticipate and predict where the next leak is going to happen and do that proactively. So it is, for its commercial purposes, a viable organization, but what it will do for social transformation is remarkable. It will free up thousands of our countrymen who will not need to go down a gutter again. Yep. For the next one, I actually have the co-founder, Nidhi Anarkat, right here in the audience, and you should catch her on the next break. In a nutshell, Nav Gurukul is making it possible for a 10th grade pass young woman or man, mostly women, all women, from communities that are going to have their first generation of learners access formal employment. Not as hairdressers, not as blue-collar workers, but as software developers, competing with engineers with a 4-year degree from India's premier institutions, and get jobs in companies like Mindtree, Accenture, KPMG. If any of you here in the audience are recruiters, you should absolutely get her card. Yeah. So what is the social problem here? The problem essentially is that India has 1 lakh young men and women coming out of our educational systems every month. That's 12 to 15 lakh young people every year turning 18, becoming employable, but really not having the skills to access formal jobs. That means there's a huge deficit of training that is required in the country and not enough trainers. So the residential schools that Nav Gurukul runs, complemented with their online tools, and the online platform actually reaches far more young people across the country, makes it possible for trainers to have a higher trainer-to-student ratio, right? Have a better ratio. Take away a lot of repeatable tasks like assessments, etc., make that automated. Have very bespoke training reach the student. Training in a safe space with no judgment, AI-enabled curriculum and pedagogy that improves the quality of learning over a very short period of time. Again, something that is serving a deficit of human capital and not taking jobs away, and because it exists, far more people will become employable. The third one, also very close to my heart, is Gramhal Foundation. And because I also serve on the Ministry of Agriculture's Advisory Council, I've been kind of in the thick hearing our vision for doubling farmers' income for a while. And then something like Gramhal comes along and shows us how, because in their very large base, about 250,000 farmers, they've been able to increase nearly 100%, right? Upwards of 80% income increase using AI. It started off as AI that would help measure the quality of produce. If you look at large-scale agrarian transformations like the milk revolution, it was possible because quality of milk was very measurable as fat, non-fat, water content, right? And when you have those metrics, you can go and charge the price that you deserve. Now that's very difficult to do in turmeric or spices or wheat or pulses, but AI could help to do that. Beyond just telling the farmer, this is the price you should get, Gramhal was able to make the actual matchmaking possible. They could also tell the farmer where to sell. Who is the buyer that's willing to pay you this price for what you produced? And a lot of this is based on image translation, figuring out geospatial tech, marketplace enablement. And they've been able to do that at this scale, growing like a hockey stick. The final example I have for you is Karya. Karya is monetizing voice for the producer. India speaks more languages than any other country. Karya is able to go into these niche communities that speak rare languages, capture their voice data, use it for AI, and therefore create a revenue stream for the producer of the voice. Again, large numbers, 3 crores payout for wages for 28,000 workers. And the key thing to note here is this does not require any additional skilling or employability courses that people have to take. They're speaking their native tongue. They already have the skill. We don't. We get to access it because there's an intermediary like Karya. And there are so many more. You recently saw the Prime Minister speak with Mr. Bill Gates, 2 different languages, real-time translation happening. You'll see that a lot more in election speeches across the country. You'll see it in tools that some of you have already started to use, and that's come from Bhashini, right? As complex as language translation is, it is now possible in real time, and this is digital public infrastructure for us to use for free. Vadhwani AI has created a solution called Cotton Ace, which targets the pink ball moth in cotton. It's one of the early use cases. Soon it will go to other moths and other crops. But essentially what that means is you don't have to spray a chemical and pray. You can targetedly identify using images what the pest is and use biomimicry, pheromone, and other bio-like alternates to chemical pesticides in a very targeted manner. And this would not be possible if not for AI. Apurva is collecting survey data of farmers from across the country, spoken in different languages, different dialects, conversations happening in that vernacular, building a lot of trust, aggregating that and building insights that you and I can process in Hindi or English. And this is happening at national scale. Humsafar is one of our early startups from our portfolio as a non-profit that we incubated back in 2019. The idea they had come up with was that they would use the phone on the camera to spot if a truck driver was drowsy and wake them up and prevent an accident. And from there, it went to monitoring speed levels, safety practices, basically bringing down accident rates, not in small percentages, but in orders of magnitude. So all of this basically says that if you have the right heart, right? The heart of an innovator that cares about everyone that's getting left behind in this whole digital divide madness. And if you have the power of AI, then something like the vision of a poverty-free India need not be in decades, right? We need not think 75 years of independence and 75 more. You could cut that down to a few years, perhaps even make the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals vision possible, and definitely make India poverty-free by 2047 as we turn 100 as a country. It's about time. Yeah. Thank you so much. Would love to take your questions if you have any. And the timer here is off. I don't know. Keep me honest on time, please. Yes.
We can have some questions. Can we have a...
How are we making sure this entire new generation, these young people that I see here sitting around me and working in AI, ethics, value systems, you know, we talked about inclusive AI in the session before you. I mean, these are some of the things which, have to be at the core of everything that we do. While today you've spoken about, actually in the social space, so ethics, etc., to a large extent is inbuilt, but that remains my concern, that are we training our engineers before you start training AI, on ethics, values, inclusiveness, and things like that. So how is that progressing?
Yeah. So I want to make a distinction between what Veena said right before me and what we've talked about now. Veena gave us a glimpse into what mainstream AI needs to be sensitive about, right? Commercial AI solving first world problems also needs to have a lens on inclusion in the way training data is created and used, in the way the solution itself builds agency for those who may not already have it. Again, in response to the question from the back. This is slightly different in that this is choice of problem itself being an inclusive problem statement. And it's not either or, it's both, right? I think even this will fail if the former is not adequately done well. This very focusedly says there are lucrative problems that entrepreneurs with the unicorn ambition are already chasing, and let that be. But there's this very large space that is being left behind because there's no money to be made here. Maybe some money to be made, just enough to make sure you have revenue streams to sustain your work. But really it's not going to make you rich anytime soon, right? Or take you really high up in your valuations, because venture capital might not care about this as much, and hence you need impact funding and investments. The world needs both. And I think as you go through the day and listen to people like Vandana, who's a social enterprise, you'll find that both problems and solutions are in all shades of gray, right? They're all colors. And a big part of inclusive thinking is to make the space for everyone and make sure nobody starves, right? That there's a certain flow of funding, capital, policy attention, public attention to all these different wonderful change makers. And I guess that's what we are here to celebrate and build recognition for.
Do we have any more questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to understand like how this AI we are going to be, like if you just take whatever you said, so how our next generation is going to take it up, and what education system in India or globally they should make a baseline for accepting our next generation to have this DI acceptance and the AI acceptance, because everything goes hand in hand. And that's again goes in the baseline, the culture and the whatever we follow, right?
Yeah.
So how we are going to make a base for everything for our next generation to adapt it and accept it? Like it is taking time for us because we know something and we trying to accept it. But for our next generation, how we are going to make it?
Correct. So there is certainly a race against time, because when you say next generation, it is not 14 years the way it used to be, right? The technology generations are happening in weeks, maybe months, not in years the way they used to. And you already have Hollywood shutting down large studios because Sora is here, right? As a country, it is a race against time. Back to the problem statement of our growing population becoming employable, needing to become wage earners to bring their families and communities out of poverty. It is important that they do so with skills that are ready for the future, right? So back to the example of, should we be training them to be hairdressers or tailors? Probably not, because tailoring might vanish, making space for fully automated apparel manufacturing, and the jobs will shift from tailors to high-tech manufacturing, right? Probably not even high-tech manufacturing, but to controllers, data analysts, programmers, prompt engineers, quality checkers. The roles are changing. And there is a race against time to adapt our educational systems, our training curriculums and courses, and that's where Navgurukul and startups in the space come in. Yeah. So it's not an easy answer. I want to leave you with hope, but not with the feeling that it's all good. It is a race against time, and we all have a role to play. Yeah.
We can take one more question, okay. Sudha, if that's okay. Yeah, we can have that.
Yeah.
Hi, a great talk, and yeah, actually this side, yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you for bringing this presentation to us so that we are aware outside of the tech scope that we listen to every day, what else tech is actually doing on the ground. So this is great to hear. My question is regarding this part where we say it's the brain of AI that we are trying to merge in. So firstly, can you elaborate a bit more on that? For example, how different it is, let's say, from simple data processing, let's say for, identifying moth in the crops, or even for making safe, highway driving, and the example that you set it up. So how do we bring the power of AI? I mean, I wouldn't want to know that AI is just being sprinkled over, as you said, that we have funding issues and, getting venture capitalists to, invest for us. So because when it comes to social causes, it becomes difficult. I understand that part. And also, how do we bridge the gap of initial inertia when we are bringing marginalized communities to accept the AI or accept this tech? How do we provide that initial training to them? And how do we define that kind of use case? So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So it's a nuanced question and not a straight answer. So when we speak about digital inclusion, it doesn't mean that every single person needs to be digitally literate. And I think the Solinas is a good example of how the life of a manual scavenger changes because technology is there. Detecting leaks without a human being required to go in, a robotic arm is going in, right? Which means they are now freed up to access any other kind of job, including farm work, including animal husbandry. The solutions will come in all shades. A solution like Karya makes it possible for someone who does not have a smartphone to speak into an IVR. Their voice gets recorded, used for AI, and they get a money transfer, right? So these are all the shades of solutions where even as we make it possible for larger numbers of people to benefit from the digital economy, it's buying time in a way, but pretty soon you will need more direct solutions and more direct inclusion. There was a part of your question in the beginning which I kind of may not have answered, but happy to catch up offline. There is a clock ticking. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sudha. Can we have a huge round of applause for Sudha? Thank you so much for sharing those wonderful stories, and we really hope that they become success stories soon. Thank you so much, Sudha.